a universal, non-taxable, no means tested payment made to all citizens from grave to grave. It is paid regardless of past national insurance contributions, income, wealth, or mineral status. Scott Stassens, founding member of Economic Security Project, have mentioned that a UBI set at $1,000 a year per month and $300 per child a month would eradicate a country's poverty entirely. For example, the poverty level in Brazil has fallen to the lowest level in 40 years after $100 a month have been distributed to about 25% of the population beginning in the March of 2020. The second reason is that enacting unconditional basic income could lead the nation to positive job and GDP growth. UBI provides a greater incentive for those out of work to take up employment as they do not risk losing any of their current benefits and are no longer constrained by similar conditions. They have mentioned that it could also encourage people to be more positive as they already have a basic income to support them. As a result, it will have a positive impact on employment and reduce unemployment rate. As for raising the GDP, the Roosevelt study written by Roosevelt Research Director Marshall's statement at Boston College London Institute and at the University of Cranston in southern Italy came up with also an experiment about how UBI promote GDP. They have found out that providing a full universal basic income in which every adult gets $1,000 a month without raising taxes will permanently grow the GDP economy by about 2.62%, which is $550 billion, and can also expand the labor force by about 1.1 million people. The third reason is that enacting unconditional basic income improves people's physical and mental health. Recent research had linked the stress of poverty with inflammation in the brain. UBI could set up at a level to ensure that everyone's basic needs are met. This will reduce much of the stress faced by the working poor or families on benefits. UBI will also help people, usually women and children, to leave abusive relationships. Domestic abuse occurs more often in poor households where victims lack the financial means to escape. Similarly, UBI might prevent the negative childhood experiences that lead to a mental illness and other problems later in life. These include experiencing violence or abuse or having parents with mental health, substances abuse, and legal problems. Behind these problems are often poverty, inequality, and social isolation, and UBI is the best way to solve that. In conclusion, evidences have emerged that leads us to believe the policy does indeed provide defending financial security for all our households, where increasing overall works intended, maintaining tax reversals, and increasing health and well-being in the population. And that is why we firmly agree that Taiwan should enact unconditional basic income. Thank you.
On-site constructive speech, 4 minutes.
If everyone's ready, my time starts now. So we offer the following framework. A just government must evaluate the consequences of its policy to ensure a sustainable economy and job opportunities for as many people as possible. Our first contention is inflation. Subpoint A. Giving everyone cash leads to massive inflation and recession. Iran's UBI program proves. Guardian 15. Iran can no longer sustain the billions of dollars needed to pay cash handouts enacted by the former president Ahmadinejad. All Iranians receive money regardless of their income. Inflation fallen by more than 40% to under 15%. 500,000 people have lost their jobs. This is a result of raiding development funds in order to pay cash allowances. Subpoint B. UBI causes price inflation, which hurts the economy. Covington 14. Give every person an extra few $1,000s a year, and all of a sudden you've got a greater demand for all kinds of things. More people wanting it means the price go up. It could wipe out the value entirely. And basic income would be a necessity that adds nothing positive to people's lives. Subpoint C. Inflation destroys economic growth and impedes investment, and a stable dollar undermines productive asset usage and thus eliminates job opportunities. Woodhill 14. The economy does best with a stable dollar. An unstable dollar interferes with our economy's ability to create and utilize assets to produce our GDP and employ people. This would be no jobs and GDP would be zero, and it reduces capital investment. Balance is key. Harrington and Chia, 20. A balanced budget is crucial for Taiwan for many reasons. It reduces market risk and attracts foreign and direct investment. Relies much on reducing risk to attract foreign investment. It is not including any international and regional safety net. It's left alone in the fight. And deter the occurrence of capital effect. Taiwan has to increase tax revenue or cancel some existing means test benefits. Attention to is welfare. Subpoint A. A UBI's incredible cost will crowd out the other social programs. Dog. 16. A UBI will be incredibly expensive. A 10,000 annual basic income would cost more than 3 trillion per year, consuming all tax revenue. This would crowd out social programs. A basic income would leave low-income families worse off because federal dollars are currently targeted toward the poor and would be transferred to a universal program created by the middle class and the wealthy. Subpoint B. The poor and seniors would lose tens of thousands worth of benefits and welfare to be replaced with UBI. Matthew 17. Funding a large-scale universal basic income would necessarily require using fundings for welfare unemployment insurances and all kinds of subsidies such as Medicaid, Social Security, and Medicare. Everyone over the age of 65 would lose out. The poor seniors would lose more than 34,000 worth of benefits. Low and middle income people would lose more than 18,000 to 28,000 each year. Subpoint C. Current welfare encourages work. UBI empirically significantly reduces work, which keeps recipients in poverty, while taking money from the needy and giving it to the able-bodied adults. Rector 18. The premise of UBI has a known track record of failure that hurts recipients and increases dependence on the government. For each $1,000 in added benefits, there was an average of 660 reduction in earnings, meaning that 3,000 in government benefits was required for a net increase of 1,000 in each family. A comprehensive UBI policy would transfer funding away from the vulnerable to affluent people capable of self-support, eliminate Social Security and Medicare payments that transfer funds to able-bodied non-working adults, by establishing a universal entitlement by creating for the first and a moral expectation that able-bodied adults who refuse to support themselves should be entitled to aid from the taxpayers. The overwhelming majority of Americans believe that the able-bodied adults should be required to work or prepare for work as a condition receiving aid. This was the core principle behind the welfare program in the 90s. As noted, the UBI abandons the principle. By removing work requirements from welfare, UBI would decrease work among the poor and increase dependence on the government. And for the following reasons, we negate. Thank you.
Class 5, 3 minutes. And the question will be first asked by the prosa.
Okay, I have a question for you. First, you have mentioned that using UBI would be unable to stabilize. Why do you think so?
Oh, because, okay, I'm going to give an example. So in this economy, if 10 people want the same thing, then the price is about here. But if more people want the same thing, then the supplier would want to increase the price because he knows or she knows that more people want that good. So they would want to try to increase the price. And as the price keeps on going up, and as the money in the economy increases, so there's more money that circulates in the economy, inflation would go because the money value decreases. You said that UBI reduces poverty and income inequality. Can you give can you give a specific reason why this is unique to UBI and other social programs can't help reduce poverty too?
Well, because simply UBI is a universal basic income, and it is a welfare to all the citizens in the countries. And we have shown that in Brazil, as I mentioned that in 2020 in March, they have launched a UBI program, and which has reduced the unemployment rate to the lowest point in 40 years. And also, I have a question for you. You have mentioned in your constructive speech that if we enacting the UBI, the GDP will be zero. And what is the reason for that?
Oh, it's the same as the inflation because it would continue to decrease because of this unstable dollar, and no one want to invest in that dollar, so soon the economy will just collapse.
Do you have any evidence?
Do you want the card?
Just getting the data or something.
I don't have the exact statistics, but it's based on a card by analysis that did this model to see what would happen if unstable dollar occurs. Yeah. And can you tell me who's going to fund for these massive fundings for UBI?
The government, they can increase taxes for the rich one and some companies instead of those poor people. Because the meaning of UBI is to rest.
Sorry, 1 minute left. Sorry, 1 minute left.
Because the meaning of UBI is to help those poor people. So so we can get taxes from those who are already rich and those great companies.
So we're gonna tax the rich.
Yes. And also, I have a question for you. You have mentioned that in your models, in your model of GDP, that UBI would cause negative impact to GDP, which would make it to zero. And is that model really related to real life? Is that model really reliable?
You mean if it's reliable?
Yeah, because it's a model.
Yeah. It takes all the variables away and it just follows like the economy part. So it takes away all the other like variables in the economy and only focuses on the unstable dollar. So it's reliable.
Okay, I see.
Do you have any specific examples that are like specific to Taiwan?
Specific to Taiwan.
Yeah. Do you have any examples?
Well, I have a data that is a survey from the university college
Time's
that.
up.
Thank you.
Outside rebuttal speech 4 minutes.
Good afternoon. So first, we would like to say, answer the question that I have been asking, that is, why is it, do we have any specific evidence about UBI can use in Taiwan society? But actually, we have evidence about when Taiwan is facing economic problems in 2000, and the welfare system right now can't deal with this problem. Actually, the welfare system to all of the people, giving money to all of the people, is better to solve the problem of the economic problem happens in 2000. And during their speech, they have been making the arguments that they have been saying that UBI will cause inflections. But according to the evidence of Stephen Pressman, a former professor of economics and finance at Monmouth University, says that whether a basic income cost inflection will depend on the state of economy as a whole and how the basic income generated and financed. If unemployment is extremely low, the basic income is likely to cause price to rise rather than boost employment. If basic income is financed in sales and value-added taxes, this will lead to higher price and inflation. None of this would happen in our UBI taxes policy, because on the other hand, Pressman also has been saying that if the base reveal is financed by reducing other government spending, then basic reveal protections would have a little or no effects on inflation. So that's the reason why we think that inflation won't be a problem that we needed to worry about. And also, they have been saying that UBI will have a high cost, but we actually have the policy to deal with the high cost, because we don't deny that there's going to be high cost, but we think that our government have the ability to deal with this high cost. Because if UBI were employment, if UBI is going right now, many social welfare budget and the administrative cost of employment social welfare budget would be significantly reduced, which means that the labor cost will be reduced, and there are now 10% of the welfare system right now. So if we reduce these kind of money, it can actually cover a part of the UBI. And at the same time, let me give you an example. In the Euro Union, for example, some scholars have calculated that if an exact subsidy and benefits were combined and made into a UBI, there would be enough money to pay 800 euros per person per month across Europe. So it means that and that one is not counting the administrative and personal cost of the labor cost, that would be eliminated with a UBI. And actually, our government can do two things. First one is to make money, second one is to save money, because for the making money parts, the government has 3 targets to taxation. The first one is to tax technology companies, especially data collection practice, because like Google, Facebook, Amazon, they're actually using those kind of large companies actually rely to the data, and those kind of data are from the contribute of each of us, because we are sliding phones, so that's the reason why they're gonna get those kind of data. So our government can't tax them, because these kind of companies have is contribute to those data are actually from us. So our government have the ability and they can tax them. The second one is the tax to the owners of robots and automation's product factors. The future robot society will create a lot of unemployment people. The robots themselves are not taxable. Therefore, we can tax those owner of the robots because those robots gonna replace us in the future, and those people are not gonna get jobs in the future. In order, thank you.
Counselor, rebuttal speech, 4 minutes.
Before my speech, I would like to give an off-time roadmap. So first, I will give some extensions on inflation, and second, I will continue on the rebuttals against the opposing team. My time will start in 3, 2, 1. So first of all, inflation will always outweigh because inflation means that people using UBI will not be able to benefit from the extra money because it means that costs will rise and the money they get will just be used to pay for even more expensive things anyways. And our framework is whoever has a better economy, higher job opportunities, and has a bigger scope of this debate should win. So why is Taiwan more vulnerable with inflation and cannot be irresponsible with their currency? Because we have a lack of recognition as a country and we're in great geopolitical instability. We're right next to North Korea and is in the risk of a Chinese invasion. And we're also surrounded by financial crisis and we have a small economy that's dependent on technology. The result is that we have to be conservative with how we spend money on foreign currency because or else we will lose trust of the foreign governments. And when we lose trust, the NTD will be devaluated due to the anticipation of the international community that our currency will not be worth anything. The impact of the devalued currency is total collapse of the Taiwanese economy because our dollar will be completely worthless and people won't be able to use it in the global market. And next, there has never been any real instance of UBI around the world, so that the evidence they provide should be viewed with skepticism. The pro should be burdened with providing the link to how their examples, such as Brazil, links with Taiwan, because only then will their analysis apply to this debate. First, answering to poverty. According to the nation's encyclopedia, poverty in Taiwan has almost been eradicated, with less than 1% of the population considered as poor or belonging to a low-income bracket. So the issue of poverty that they bring up is not that great of a magnitude and is already being solved by the status quo. And second, welfare does a much better job of solving poverty because it specifically addresses the needs of the individuals that are in need of help. For example, Taiwan, we have a health insurance that provides health care for people with complicated health issues, whereas UBI would not be able to pay anywhere enough for those complicated procedures. Moreover, other programs address things like disabilities or training for young parents to make sure they can get out of the cycle of poverty, where UBI just throws money at this issue. And third, targeted welfare provides an enormous amount of resources and money because it is targeted, which means that millions of people will be in worse poverty because they'll lose out on the lot of money in the system, where it takes the scarce resources and divides it to everyone, including the rich who doesn't need the money. Now, answering their econ growth argument. First of all, we like to present that their UBI idea is not feasible at all, especially in Taiwan, because Taiwan is already lower than other countries. Raising income corporate tax will drive up the cost for businesses, creating a push factor for domestic investments to go offshore or deterring in toward foreign direct investments. So using a 2019 statistic as an example, it will entail reductions in both exports of goods and services and domestic fixed capital investments in Taiwan's GDP, which means that the risk of eliminating these tax incentives is too high given that these tax credits are aimed to maintain the competitive advantage of Taiwan's industries in the global market. And also what we see is as more people get money, demand in the economy will also increase, meaning that inflation will happen anyways as more people get the power to purchase things in the economy, which also means that businesses will likely increase their costs, which also means that when that happens, laborers will ask for higher wages, which also means that the companies themselves will likely just cut their wages in anticipation for this inflation. Yeah, so it actually hurts poor people more than we think. And third, answering their physical and mental health argument. First of all, on gender. Gender disparity is not as bad as Taiwan as in other countries with a patriarchal society, so the UBI impact that it brings to Taiwan won't be as great. And second, UBI can lead to a reversion back to traditional gender roles because women will feel pressured to use basic income to focus on housework, meaning that they will most likely spend the money they receive to buy more household goods. Now, answering the health argument. According to South Hill 2016, many of the poor and jobless are lacking more than just cash. They may be addicted to drugs or alcohol, suffer from mental health issues, have criminal records, or have difficulty functioning in a complex society. Money may be needed, but it itself does not cure such ills. A humane and wealthy society should provide a disadvantaged with adequate services and support. But there's nothing wrong with making assistance conditional on individuals fulfilling some obligation, whether it's work or training. Thank you.
Crossfire.
So I'll ask the first question. First, I wanted to ask the definition of inflection for you is that means that more money getting inside the market?
You think that inflation is just when the prices rise in the economy without an increase in supply.
So you mean that the price rise means inflection?
Yeah, but inflation can happen through many different methods. For example, you can have an increase in demand, which means that there will be like more people wanting to buy a certain set amount of goods, but the goods itself is not increasing, so the prices will just naturally rise because more people want it, but there's less of it.
Yes, because according to our evidence, if the price is getting higher and people's salary is getting higher, it will actually get a better quality of everything, and there's not going to be inflection because it's not the price only being higher. It's also the salary of people being higher because due to the UBI, the salary of people will be higher.
But once people get more income, don't you think they'll spend their income on more things in the economy? Which means that ultimately it will lead to an increase in the economy. And we think that with the argument that supply will naturally just match with the demand, we think that won't happen really fast because first of all, businesses won't be able to just instantaneously change their supply. But the moment that the government gives out these monthly cash to people, you immediately increase the amount of demand that they have. And also with my argument on why Taiwan is specifically vulnerable to inflation, we cannot be very radical with our currencies, especially since Taiwan is not a very stable economy. We're not very diverse, and also we buy a lot of foreign currencies in order to keep our own currency credible. So the moment that Taiwanese government starts to be irrational with their currency, other governments will start to anticipate that our currency might fall, because of this inflation, which means that the Taiwanese dollar will very likely be devalued.
But actually, what you're talking about, Taiwan society is economical, not a stability, but actually it's not because Taiwan actually have a really stability economy society according to our evidence.
The stability I'm talking about is not whether our economy is good or not. It's about the trust that the international community has in our currency. For example, you see the United States. Their currency is very stable. They're the world's reserve dollar. Them doing this UBI will be very different from Taiwan doing UBI as well.
But actually, Taiwan already have a UBI experiment in Taichung already.
But not a long-term one. This UBI is more long-term, which means that it's different, and it's also on a much larger scale.
So you think that we don't have a long-term experiment means that it will cause inflection because we can't predict if will happen inflection in the future?
I mean that, what I mean is that a long-term UBI giving up, a UBI program will likely cause more of the impacts that we're talking about, comparatively to the little experiments that countries have.
Thank you.
Is there a total prep time 4 minutes long?
Each team can have a 3-minute preparation.
3 minutes? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
How's that summary? 3 minutes.
Greetings. So the summary of ops will be that there are 3 main points with enacting UBI and they're all positive impact. One is that enacting unconditional basic income can reduce its poverty and income inequalities. And the second point is that it could be positive to jobs and GDP growth. And thirdly is that enacting unconditional basic income improves people's physical and mental health. And now I'll give a deep introduction about it. And as for, there's one thing about it called the economic security, is that how people feel safe about their economic status. And the economic insecurity reflects on strained wages, long working hours, and rising income inequalities, with a more than six-fold gap between the top and bottom 20% of household income, and the fourth longest working hours on Earth. According to 2015, the government statistic, on average, wages have not changed in 2 or 3 years, according to a survey by staffing agencies. Yet Taiwan used to be a country capable of balanced economic development. And UBI, on the other hand, will give citizens, especially the poor and the young, economic security, which will have another 3 more positive impacts. First, they will be more inspired to work, and those unemployed will be positive for jobs looking, since they don't need to worry to lose their current benefits, because the current welfare system only gives benefits to those who are poor. So the poor might worry that if it gets another job and they could lose their current benefits, while UBI is a benefit to all citizens, that they don't have to worry about that problem. And secondly, they will be more willing to stay in Taiwan, thus more talented people with abilities will stay in Taiwan, which has a positive impact on economic development and even innovations. Because there's a situation now is that people with talent and abilities are now willing to get to other countries such as Europe or America for further development. And enacting UBI would inspire them to continue to stay in Taiwan, and which is positive for the development of Taiwan itself. And thirdly, on the other hand, people will be more willing to raise kids since they have enough income and they could get more money if they raise children. Because the Taipei Times has reported that last year, the Taiwan's low fertility rate is linked to low family incomes, and unfriendly work environment policies that discourage childbearing, and young people's worries about the cost of raising children. Taiwan will have the 3rd lowest fertility rate in the world by 2025, according to the American Chamber of Commerce, and 20% of the population will be over the age of 70. The working population will be dangerously low. There won't be enough workers to take care of the elderly or run the economy properly. However, UBI could provide enough economic stability to encourage young Taiwanese for families, thus ensuring that there are enough young and middle-aged people to care for the elder one. In other words, an unconditional basic income would prevent Taiwan from becoming a super-age society. Thank you.
Contract summary. I need 1 minute. Sure. Is going to be rebuttals, then I'm going on to impact calculus. So if no one interrupts me, my time starts now. So first, I have some rebuttals. A huge flaw in Pro's argument is that they lack Taiwan-specific evidence and reasons why UBI is specifically needed to solve. My partner gives very specific warnings about why Taiwan's economy differs from other countries. Our currency is so fragile to the point where risking the stability of it would mean almost a Great Depression. To answer the poverty, the magnitude is very low, as we said, because the National Encyclopedia already says that poverty in Taiwan is 1%, so the magnitude is really low. And second, targeted welfare provided an enormous amount of resources, and this targeted welfare outweighs. And to answer GDP, there would be no growth because inflation would occur, and I would get to that later on in my speech. And to answer physical mental health, again, why is it specific to Taiwan, to UBI in Taiwan? For all we know, they would take our money for drugs and other substances. That's Sawhill 16. In the end, the biggest problem was that UBI may be its cost and its distribution distributive implications for the flawed assumption that money cures all ills. Their solvency is to tax the rich, like the tech companies, to fund for UBI, but this cannot happen in Taiwan. We are dependent on these companies. If it doesn't make sense to tax them, they might just get angry and go offshore to other countries. Taiwan doesn't have poverty issues. You're literally taking money away, so many welfare programs in order to help less than 1% of the population. We tell you that UBI causes inflation, which is an impact multiplier for the current society because poverty will be so much more serious after this inflation. We believe that welfare in the status quo is already doing well enough and we should develop the direction of welfare. The status quo is already working. We collapse on an inflation argument. Now moving on to impact calculus. Magnitude. We outweigh them for a few reasons. First, our contingent of inflation makes the economy worse and more people suffer. As Henderson said, inflation will get so bad that every dollar earned, 50 cents will be returned to the government. Inflation outweighs anything because the impact is global, infinite, and uncertain. Who knows how many years humans need to recover from a recession or depression? Like the second speaker said, according to Nation's Encyclopedia, poverty in Taiwan has almost been eradicated, less than 1% of the population. Their magnitude is 1% in Taiwan, but ours is national because inflation affects everyone. And time frame. Second you implement UBI, the inflation will skyrocket. And now onto probability. Judge, if you see a tiny bit of probability of inflation on our side, you should vote con, because Taiwan cannot risk even a little of economic instability. This is my Harian 20 card, which is that Taiwan does not have a safety net to fall back on. We are a country that relies on foreign currencies to survive. Currency is trust. If inflation happens, Taiwan's economy will be in shambles and no one can trust our currencies. This could cause massive, if inflation happens, Taiwan's economy will be in shambles and no one will trust our currencies. This could cause a Chinese invasion because they could see that Taiwan is weak. The impact is massive. War means death, and death is the biggest impact because it's irreversible and permanent. Towards inflation. Higher demands lead to higher prices because every business knows they can get customers because everyone has more money. And inflation is real. They said that UBI is giving money to the poor to spend, right? But now suddenly the demand is a fixed supply and is higher than previously was because money can be spent in the market. This increases inflation. In fact, because in their world inflation is high on their side, they increase poverty. And for these reasons, we proudly integrate. Thank you.
Grand cross 5, 3 minutes.
Do you have been saying that if the inflection really happened, it will have a massive problem and China will invade us? But what about now? Now it's happening to inflection.
We're saying that inflation is going to get even worse because of the UBI that happens, and because inflation gets worse, our economy is really bad, and China will see us as a weakness and invade.
So if we have inflation and China will see us if we, why?
We're saying that UBI causes more inflation than the inflation that's right now, and the inflation is going to get so bad that China's going to see us as a weakness and it's going to invade because our economy is like weak.
Plus, in evidence that China would invade us. Is there any evidence? Because from the studies that China could even invade us at any time, it has nothing to do with the inflation.
What do you mean?
I mean that if China is going to invade us, and it depends on the international scenario instead of inflation.
No, but we're saying this inflation has not happened here. We're saying this inflation is going to happen if UBI is implemented in Taiwan. So there's and we're also saying that this inflation will affect exactly the international situation because this inflation means that people will lose trust in the Taiwanese currency, and trust in currency is basically the most important thing because currency is trust. The moment that these countries don't trust your currency will merely lose all of its values.
But according to the evidence we said,
Can you explain your example about that you mean the year 2000, how Taiwan faces an economy in the welfare system? Can you explain that example?
that example is actually talking about in 2000 that is economy problem that happened inside Taiwan, and Taiwan's government is trying to solve this problem, and a research telling about two ways to solve this problem. One is to use the welfare system right now. Another way is to give money to every single person, and to use the welfare system not only to the poor person, but actually giving to every single person. And they said that welfare system to every single person is actually better than the welfare system right now. And it can actually face the problem of Taiwan.
So what was the welfare system like back then?
The welfare system right now, the welfare system
No,
right
I meant back then, because you said back then is better than it's now. So what was it like back then? Like,
I'm
how
not
different?
saying back then. I'm saying the welfare system of giving money to every single person is better than the welfare system right now.
Also, can you provide proof that no one actually has a poverty issue?
A poverty issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because actually, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there are the unemployment raising from 3.7% to 4.07% right now.
Well, we have a statistic that actually says less than 1% of Taiwan is actually in poverty.
Can you provide that evidence?
We've consistently said it during the round. It's from the National Encyclopedia 16. Yeah.
Saying that 1% is also really important. We needed to save them. It's not because there are only 1% of people inside Taiwan is suffering by poverty and we don't need to save them. Time's
Well,
up.
Final focus.
Can we have program?
Yes. preparation time remaining.
Good afternoon. First, the content has been mentioned about that UBI will give money to people that they don't need it, but actually, that assumes that for a moment that it does give money to the rich people who may not need the money, but it is necessary sacrifice to simplify the complicated and shame of the welfare system. Taiwan is currently experiencing massive unemployment as a result of the new coronavirus pandemic. According to the Ministry of Labor, unemployment has risen from 3.7% before 3.7% to 4.07% after the pandemic, which is actually the evidence that we have been mentioning in the earlier round. Moreover, Taiwan has the 6th largest number of the robots in the world, we are bound to face a situation where the robots will replace humans. This suddenly unemployment will have a very bad impact on the safety and economy stability of our society, which is actually, we have been mentioning this inside our constructive speech, that we are facing the problem of unemployment, and this problem should be faced because in the future world there's going to be more unemployment according to our evidence, and we needed to use UBI to face these kind of problems, not only to face the problem of poverty. And actually, according to our evidence, according to their evidence, although there are only 1% of people is facing poverty right now inside our country, but we still needed to solve these kind of problems, because actually, according to one of our evidence has been saying that one family in Taiwan right now having 7 person will only get 70,000 of money right now, and it's not enough for a family to live, because this is the money they get from the government with the welfare system right now, and it's not enough. With UBI, they can get enough money for their life and actually getting better. And they have been talking about the inflation problems. We don't deny that there's going to be more money getting inside the market, but we deny that there's going to be happening inflection, because in the rebuttal speech we have been talking about that the inflection will only happen. Thank you.
Concept. Final focus. 2 minutes.
I want to use the rest of my substance now.
No preparation time.
My time will start in 3, 2, 1. First, we win and foremost, because our arguments are specific to Taiwan, while theirs is about other countries and did not provide specific links as to why they are relevant to Taiwan's UBI implementation. This independently should already help us win this debate, but let's move on to other reasons to why we win. Before going to impact calculus, let's just look at why the arguments don't stand. First of all, they tell us that it is necessary sacrifice to help the 1% and massive unemployment in Taiwan. However, our statistics provide that there's less than 1% of people in Taiwan in poverty, which means that the people who are unemployed on their side are not in a critical situation. Furthermore, the pandemic is not permanent because the fact that we can come out and debate in person proves that, which means that the unemployment that the pandemic brought out won't decrease as there's an increase in the chance that people can go out and start to get jobs on their own. And second, inflation will happen. I'll explain that in the impact calculus later on. Now moving on to the impact calculus. First, our framework given in the first speech was that whoever can increase the most jobs, make the economy more stable, and provide a bigger scope should win. Con wins because UBI will affect the entire nation, possibly the entire world. On their side, they help less than 1% of people in poverty. Now, we're not saying that they're not important, we're just merely saying that we outweigh because we help more people. Also, the fact that they're just less than 1% means that targeted welfare will be more efficient and compared to finding a budget in the government to spend on 23 million people every single month. We tell you that the moment people get more money, they're going to spend and invest in it. The demand in the economy is going to surge up, and the massive inflation is going to happen. The impact is that other countries will see this inflation as a radical decision on the behalf of the Taiwanese government, which means that our currency will be devalued instantaneously and is likely going to collapse our economy. Our inflation argument turns their poverty argument because the poor won't be better off in a world where prices are way higher than they were before. Now moving on to probability. Judge, like my partner's last speech said, if you see a tiny bit of inflation on our side, you should vote con. Taiwan cannot risk even a little of economic instability. This is my Harrington 20 card, which says that Taiwan does not have a safety net to fall back on. We are a country that relies on foreign currency to survive. Currency is trust. If our inflation happens, Taiwan will be in shambles and no one will trust our currency. Thank you.
congratulations, because all of you have really done an outstanding job in terms of courage and your delivery. And both sides have provided some solid evidence in this debate, which I think is really good in a debate. And the judges will be really happy to see them. And second of all, I would like to say that because actually this is still a policy debate. So actually this is the protein's burden of proof to provide your plan. You don't have to provide some details, but at least you have to provide some like budget or where does the money come from, instead of just saying that, claiming that the government will have to can increase the tax and then will have enough money. So this is the reason why the counting will attack you on the feasibility part. And actually for the counting, there's still something that I would like to give you some suggestions, because they say that there's only 1% of poverty, and actually you guys claim that there's very actually 1% of poverty is very little, and maybe the government don't have to pay attention on that. Actually, that can be an argument, but actually it doesn't sound very good in the judge's ears. Yeah, because maybe that is correct, but maybe you can choose some words to to tag it. That yeah, because if there are some poor people sitting in front of us, then maybe they will not feel so comfortable. Yeah. And actually, here's another suggestion for the counting. That is, actually you cannot say that because Taiwan hasn't enacted UBI, so they cannot provide solid evidence, because that is a status quo. We don't enact UBI in Taiwan currently. So I think it's not a burden of proof of the protein to give you some solid evidence. So I think the protein can give some examples from other countries and explain why we can compare other countries with Taiwan. And I think that can be a possible way to explain their argumentation. And last of all, our decision will be based on that the arguments which are attacked and what kind of arguments are remaining. So actually the main idea from the counting will be the inflection. And actually I would like to hear more about the response from the inflection part. So I would like to suggest that, because when you're going to respond to the inflection part, you only have 5 seconds remaining. Yeah, so I would suggest that you spend much more time on this part, because that is that was their main attack. Yeah, and for this part, actually you stick on that whether the plan is feasible or not. And actually, the protein as a government side, you have to provide some solid evidence to prove that this policy can be adopted by Taiwan. So I think this will be your burden of proof. And actually they did attack on this, so I will take that kind of point. And the main point is not the most important, because I think that in terms of the each speaker's points, I think it's very, very close. So we'll just leave it to the argumentation. And the argumentation part, all the judges voted for Fuhsing Debate, so congratulations. And you can, yeah, congratulations to you all.